This video is focused on the viewer widget. It's just an overview of that widget. The viewer is a huge topic in Quincy. There are so many different elements to it. This video is just going to focus again on a general overview, but there are a lot of sub-videos you can go into if you have a particular topic you're interested in. We're going to talk about the viewer tabs. We're going to talk about the different viewers, and we're going to talk about the related tab. Again, many of these topics have their own dedicated video that you should go to if you have a particular focus. For example, if you want to learn about how we deal with SQLite databases, visit that video. It's a meaty subject in and of its own right. So let's go into Quincy and open up the viewer. We don't actually have a case. We don't have a case open, so there'll be no data, but we don't really need it for this video. The first thing I want you to see is that it looks like you're greeted, if you will, with just one viewer that has a bunch of tabs here, but in reality there are three sub-panes. This is the related panel, which will show you if the document has any threads, family or similar. There is the help panel, which will allow you to play any of the help videos and search for any particular help videos. You can just double click on them and they will pop up and play. Let's just go ahead and pause that. No need to play through that. You can also search here. If you want to do overview, you could find all the videos that are overviews. This panel, the help panel, has its own video, so we're not going to spend much time on that here. Well, let's close that down. Just remove that button so it stays closed. Excuse me. And now now let's talk really quickly about the related panel, Again, if you have an email, if you pulled up an email, it will show you email threading. If this document is part of a family, let's say it's a zip or in a zip, it'll show you all the contents of that zip. And if there are documents in your data set that are similar to that document, it will show them all here. So that's, again, this panel also has its own video. So let's sort of close that down and focus now on the primary panel, if you will, the viewing panel. You can see there are a bunch of different tabs up here. If your document is a PDF or can be rendered into a PDF, it will show up here. If your document is a graphic, it will show up here, and then so on and so forth, and you can sort of read the titles and understand them. Media would be a video, text is extracted text from the document, database is a database, HTML is two things. One, if the document is natively an HTML, but also there are a bunch of different types of documents for which we render HTML as the best way of viewing that document, and that will show up here as well. Then we have history and status. Let me jump ahead to status for a second. Status will show you what is going on with each of the viewers. In Summation or even in FTK or any number of different products that have viewers, you're probably all too familiar with that dynamic where the viewer just starts to spin. You get that wheel of death, if you will, and it just spins and spins and spins, and you never really know what happens until ultimately it renders or it fails. Quincy's viewer has an active status. So if it is still polling for a document, let's say it's polling for the PDF, it will show you the polling count it is on. If it has failed to load a graphic, it will show you it has failed, and so on and so forth through the various tabs. So if you're curious what's going on, just come to the status window and it will tell you. History shows you a history of the document you are viewing. So who labeled it last, who viewed it last, all that kind of stuff, so you know who has interacted with that record. Attachments is, as the name suggests, any attachments for email. It's a select, and it will show you all the drop-down attachments, and you can click and view the attachments. The last thing to note about the viewer panel is this sort of sub-bar down here. This is the cache. And let me show you, the only way to really understand that is to actually see it in action. So we're going to open up a case here. And when it loads, it's going to load a certain number of documents into the cache. Now, interestingly enough, you can see the status window in action right there. It tried to pull 4 times for the first page image. It wasn't successful. And you can see the status of all these different different viewers. Basically, the first document in this is a live folder, and so it's not going to open. But here we are in the cache. What the cache does is it looks ahead based on how many documents you have it configured to look ahead and behind. And it will grab documents before you've requested them, if you will, and put them in the cache. And you can tell just by looking whether or not it's been able to grab the document. You can see these documents, if you were to expand them, you would see they all say no document or no document found or something like that. But this one is different. You can see it looks different, and this one looks different. And so I know that if I click on those, they're going to load something. Because the cache has been successful in finding those documents. So let me talk about one other thing that is sort of critical. It's how you advance documents in the viewer. You can see we have 2 buttons, a small button and a big button on each side. Big button, small button. If you press the big button, it will advance to the next document, but it will do so in this mode. And what I mean by this mode is right now, what we are looking at is not the first page, is not this document. We are looking at a rendered first page of this document. And we do that because, first of all, most documents can be assessed in just a page. Number 2, it's way quicker to load a single page image of a document than the entire document. And 3, we have given you the option here. You kind of have this duopolistic option where you can load and navigate your documents really quick. So as fast as sort of I can press the down arrow, the viewer will keep up because it's just loading these first page images. The moment I actually want to see the document in more detail, I can go ahead and click Load Document, and the full document will come in. Now, how does that pertain to these buttons? If you advance to the next document with the big button, you're just advancing the first page image. If you advance with the small button, you're advancing the full document. So you're saying, hey, I want to see the next document, but I want to see it in this mode. I want you to load, in this case, all 261 documents. So that is why you have big button, small button here. The last thing I want to explain about the viewer is it is, how would I say, sort of situationally aware. It starts out viewing the grid, telling you what you have in the grid and trying to render those documents. So right now I'm looking at document 305. You can see that one sort of dark highlighted. Let's jump to 309. And then if I click here, I'll jump back to 305. The next buttons, because I'm interacting with the grid, will advance me to the next item in the grid. But there are lots of places you can view documents in Quincy. Let's say you're not in the grid. Let's say you're using tasking. And you have a task that has objects in it. and you want to see those objects. If you click in this grid, Quincy knows that you're now interested in the documents in this grid. And so you can see here it's doing a PDF counter trying to render this. For some reason this doesn't render. I don't know what kind of document it is. But nonetheless, the point is, if I now go forward or backwards, I'm advancing in this grid, not the primary grid anymore. And in that way, Quincy allows you to utilize any one of the many grids that are available in the product as though it was the primary grid. Once you click in here, the viewer knows, hey, this is the grid we're using, and then when you go forward or backwards, it's going to advance forward or backwards on this grid. So that's sort of a quick overview of the viewer. Again, a lot of subtopics that we're going to be reviewing. So drill on those if you have a particular area of focus that you're interested in. Thank you very much, and I hope that was helpful.